Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to take a look at how to set up SSH between our client and our server. SSH is a secure shell protocol that will allow for you, among other things, to be able to manage a remote machine. Effectively, what you can do is you can log on from the client to the server, possibly even administer the server, or at least run commands on the server as if you were on the server without actually directly logging on through the UI. Now, again, there are a number of reasons why you would want to go about doing this. If anything, what this is going to be is just a simple demonstration of how you can successfully connect to the server from the client and the steps that you need to be able to accomplish that. So we're actually going to leave the server alone. In other words, we have it up and running. All of our activities are going to be on the client. I simply have it up here so that you know that it is running. And if anything, what we want to do is we simply want to log onto the client using any account. It technically does not have to have sudo permissions, but the only thing that we do need to know for the server is the IP address or the name of the server. The name, of course, would be able to be used if we had set up the hosts file and fundamentally knew the relationship between the IP address and the name. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure that our server is in fact up and running. And so we can just simply ping it 192.168.2.100 in my case. And yes, in fact, it is up and running. So that's a good start. The second thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and create a key using RSA encryption for our SSH client. Now, in this case, we're going to specify a specific protocol here, RSA. We could take a look at others. I will leave some links in the comments here regarding the SSH and SSH keygen that we're going to be doing. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and run our SSH keygen. And you can also look at the help. You can look at all the different possibilities. The one that we are interested in is just simply generating the key. And we have a number of different formats that we can use, but we are going to focus on RSA. So in this case, it's going to be SSH-keygen-T, and then RSA is going to be our protocol that we're going to use. And we're going to keep this demonstration pretty simple. If anything, you would want to enter in a passphrase. We're going to leave the passphrase blank. And you can see that we've generated the key. And more importantly, we've generated and put it in a specific location. And so what we want to do is we want to take a look at that file. You'll notice here, then there's basically just the keys art, if you would. And then we can actually cd into that .ssh folder. And we're doing ls-l, and you'll see that I have two files here. We're going to open these real quick just so we can see what we've just done using gedit. And you'll see that here is my SSH or my OpenSSH private key, as well as the public key that then can be shared. And so the idea here is that I'm actually going to share this with the server. Well, how do we do this? Well, it can be a two-step process. We've got two paths that we could do. I'm going to do the longer approach. In other words, the two-step process of actually copying the key manually to the destination. So we run our SSH-copy ID, and we simply specify then the username that we wish to associate with on the remote machine. So in this case, it's going to be my gmyers at 192.168.2.100. And it will ask you a couple of questions. Fundamentally is, do you know this machine? In other words, did you accidentally enter in an IP address or a machine name that you can't trust or don't know? Fundamentally, do you want to trust this? And are you sure you want to continue to connect? The answer is yes for right now. And the idea here is then we're going to copy over the SSH key that we generated. You'll need to provide the password on the remote machine for that account. And you can see that you have now added the key to the remote machine. Well, what does this allow for us to do? Well, to understand first why we would even want to use SSH, let's go ahead and take just a second to open another tab. And I'm going to do a simple demonstration utilizing our if config command. And you can see here that I know that I'm on my local machine because you could see there is my IP address. I could also, for instance, run the hostname command. You can see then what the name of the computer is, as well as other functionality associated with it. If we had, for instance, changed it. But fundamentally here, any command that we run on this terminal is in the local computer. As a matter of fact, one other one that we can do is we can simply cd to the root, cd to home, and if we do an ls-l on home, you'll see that there is my G Myers account. Now, what we'd like to do is SSH to the server. So in other words, we'd like to see if we could run some of these commands on the server. So the next step that we want to do is we simply SSH utilizing, again, that account that we just linked. So in this case, it's going to be my G Myers at 192.168.2.100. And you can see here now that I have not had to enter in any sort of password or anything like that. And if I do an ls-l, I can run commands as if I am logged on directly to that remote machine. But right now, we aren't really sure if we are, in fact, logged on to that remote machine. So if anything, we need a little bit of validation. And one way to do that would be to simply run, again, that if config command. And if you'll notice, the if config command, when we run it through the SSH terminal, gives us the IP address of the machine that we are on. In other words, we are now getting the IP address of that remote machine or the remote server that we have SSH'd into. And if you aren't yet convinced that we are on the remote machine, again, what we can do is cd to the root. We can cd to home. And if we do an ls-l, you'll see that I have more folders. In other words, these aren't the folders that are on the local machine. They are, in fact, the folders associated with the accounts on the server. Now, at this point, I can use sudo. I can do any command that I would otherwise run on the server, but I can run it through this SSH connection to the server. And so fundamentally, at this point, you have no more reason to log on to the server unless it's for the purposes of running some application that has a UI or graphical user interface that you need to interact with. Basically, everything that you would do from the command line can now be done through this SSH terminal. So this is about it for this particular demonstration. We will be connecting to other devices in the future, particularly a Raspberry Pi. Steps are essentially the same for administrating a Raspberry Pi. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And thank you for watching.